it's Karen and
Shanley
and Sam. We are partying for the new year. Yay!
Yay! Happy New Year.
Sam is excited. This is what he thinks of 2020. He's like, I'm gonna bite it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe that December is gone.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing for most people.
Yeah. So we are so happy to have you guys here for the very last category, sentimental, which I haven't started with Shanley yet, but we were going through my books yesterday. Was that just yesterday or day before?
Yeah,
day before yesterday. Yeah. And I already hit some of my sentimental stuff. So
that's right.
I know you said that it's like building a muscle, and that you save the sentimental for last because I'll get better at this as I go along. But yeah, I have a lot of sentimental books. So
yeah, and that's normal for every client has an area that they have sentimental things in, and you just happen to be a book lover. So clothing was really easy for you. We kind of cruised through clothing pretty quickly because clothing is not a thing for you, but your books are. So it's taking longer to do books, and that's super okay. You take as long as you need for each section because the idea is that you want to evaluate each item. And so if you're feeling uncomfortable about it, like Karen mentioned that she was anxious about doing books. And so she texted me the night before. She's like, okay, I'm kind of a little anxious about books tomorrow. And I said, well, number one, we're not doing books tomorrow because we hadn't finished clothing yet. And then as we were going through that session, she said, I was anxious about doing books. And I said, say more about that. And so she commented that some of the books that she had, well, a good number of the books that she has are basically, they're antiques. They've been with her a very long time, or they've been passed down from other people. And so these are all key words that I listen for. And I said, okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to divide your books into two categories. We're going to have just the regular book category, and then we're going to have sentimental books. And so that's what we did the first day. We went through, I don't know, what is it, 5 or 6 shelf bookcase?
Yeah, it was six shelves.
Okay. And we got through a lot of books, and Karen was not she really was thinking she was not going to get rid of any books at all. And this often happens with clients where they say, oh, I already went through that and I'm good. I've got all that. Yeah, I know I want to keep all that. I'm like, all right, let's just go ahead and open up that drawer anyway. And we're going to go ahead and touch everything in the drawer. And, within 3 or 5 pieces, they're like, oh yeah, I don't really need this. Yeah, I don't really need this. And so by the end of that 6 shelf bookcase, Karen had 2 full boxes of books that she was able to let go and move on to other people. And she would never have done that if she had just been like, oh no, I've gone through all of that. Those books would still be there. And so that is the point of creating the pile. And so because of Karen's space limitations, we weren't able to create a pile. And so we actually did it by all of the books in her bedroom first. And next we're going to go to her living room.
I've made a big pile in there for today.
And so she's prepping for our session this afternoon, actually. And she's made a big pile. And so this again goes to the 5 categories. So you've got clothing, books, paper, kimono, and then sentimental. And we've talked about all 4 of these, and today is sentimental. But some of what Karen is doing in this category is sentimental, but what we're doing is we're setting those books aside. And this can happen with clothing or paper or kimono. And so then what you do is you set those things aside and you deal with them at the end, because as Karen was saying, you have you strengthen your choosing muscle basically by going through the categories that are less heart consuming first. And then you get to sentimental. And it's at that point where you've had your goal in mind for this whole time of what your home is going to look like. And at this point, you're so close to the end that it makes you even more motivated to get rid of things that you normally would not have gotten rid of. And you've been able to say thank you and goodbye to so many items. Karen, do you want to share about your son picking things up today?
Yeah, my son came the entire car, I didn't get a picture, but the entire car is full of stuff. Okay, of stuff and good things. I like that you said, if I hesitated at all, it's like, well, do you really? And I think no. And then sometimes I would just grab something up and go like, thank you and goodbye. I mean, but that
Yeah.
thank you and goodbye, that really, really helped. When I watched that car drive away, I felt like I felt lighter already. And then I also felt a sense of gratitude, like, good, I know that somebody will want those books and somebody will want those clothes. It was clothes and clothes and clothes. And
Yeah.
um, do you know
Yeah.
what I realized yesterday,
What?
Shanley, though? Remember when we finished with the books? I was just, well, a little crazy, but I was just like, touching my books makes me so happy.
Yeah,
And
and
you
so that
said,
is actually that's part of the process is it reinvigorates life into the things that you do love and that you are keeping with purpose. Because again, the goal for these sessions is not to get rid of things, it's to keep things with confidence. And there
oh, I
was
like that. Keep things with, I'm going to say that again. Keep
yeah,
things with confidence.
that's right. And I will say, we started in the children's book section of Karen's collection, and it was almost the very first book she picked up. It was Millions of Cats.
Millions of
And
cats.
she just see, you see the way her face is lighting up? That right
Love that
there
book.
is what we're looking for in a response to an item. And then there were the items where she was like, and I'm like, do you see the face you're making? Do you see? And so that's a great determiner as well. And when she was saying, when I was hesitating, I'm like, yeah, think about your goal. Is it moving you towards your goal? And
Hmm.
so this is why sentimental is last. And that's why you strengthen that choosing muscle before you get to sentimental, because it's the hardest category. It's out there's a reason that they're sentimental. I mean, there's a reason you're keeping those things. And if you aren't ready to say goodbye to them, that's okay. But I want you to keep them with confidence, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily get rid of them.
What I felt so happy looking back through those books that make me so happy. And I thought, I was thinking yesterday, I thought, so all this, all the things I have in my home, why would I keep something that's not making me that happy as those books make me?
That's right. And so you had a couple of them that were specifically you'd kept, like you had some German books and some Spanish books, and you're like, am I ever going to teach Spanish again? Probably not. Muchas gracias y adios.
Yeah.
It was the cutest thing. And so then in German as well, she's like, well, I kept these books because my son was going to major in German, and then he did, but then he changed his major. And so I can say, how do you say thank you in German?
Auf Wiedersehen und danke.
And so that's what happened with those. But and I kept saying, is this moving you towards your goal? Is that who you want to be in the future? Because yes, these books you've had, like you had some yearbooks from a college you taught at. So first you went there and then you taught there. And you wanted to keep the ones where you were attending, but then you were like, I'm able to let go the ones where I worked there because
Yeah.
they're less sentimental. They mean less to me. And so that was a great compromise of out of 8
That
books.
was like, yeah, that was like a stack of
Yeah,
heavy yearbooks. Like,
they're heavy and they're tall and they stick out of your shelf. And so out of 8 books, you kept 2. That was
yeah,
amazing.
that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
And and the other thing you discovered was 4 copies of your dissertation. And that's okay, but how many do you really need? And then plus you reminded me that there was one in the library of your university. And so she set those aside into sentimental. She kept one for herself in her, she has an author section because you've written or co-authored several
Several
books or
books,
had
yeah.
books dedicated to you. And so we created a Karen book section. And so one went in there, but now she's offering one to her brother and then one to her son.
My
And we're
son
still,
took, he said, yeah, I want that, Mom. I'm like, oh,
yay,
okay, good.
great. And so that's the thing about sentimental or any item that you have actually. And this is a lesson that I haven't explained yet is that if you're going to hold something for someone else, you want to check in with them and make sure they want it, because this goes back to the oak furniture of you want to not hold on to things just because you think someone's going to want it. You want to actually check in with them and see if they do want it, because you don't want to burden somebody with an item that they feel obligated to keep because their mom or their sister or whoever gave it to them. And so the idea here is that you want to make sure you pass along items that are going to be gratefully accepted, not begrudgingly an obligation at that point, right? And so with all of my clients, I have them, and you did this with one of the books you found. Hey, I found this book going through my things. I'm happy to return it to you, but I need you to pay for the shipping to return it. And if you don't want to do that, that's cool. I'm going to donate it.
Yeah.
But you need to send a picture of the thing to the person and ask if they want it. And if they don't, then it goes out the door with the donation pile as a thank you and goodbye. If it's not important enough for that person to receive it and pay to receive it, then you're going to let it go out of your space, because your space is for you. It's not a storage facility for other people. Okay.
Yeah. And I
That's an
told my son,
important thing. That,
he took
yes.
all of his yearbooks, and I told him what you said. I said, well, I said, do you have room? And he said, and I said, Shanley said that surely in his bedroom he can find 1 square foot of space for his yearbooks. And he said, yeah, I can put them in the closet.
Great. Now they're his obligation or his
He's
choice.
22 for those of you watching. He's 22 years old, but okay, because sentimental, you know what that is I think me keeping part of his stuff here is, oh, it's gonna make me cry. It's me keeping him here.
Yes. And that
But
is
he's 22.
that's normal. And frankly, you're going to hear I hear so many times parents ask their kids, "Do you want this?" And the kids are like, "No."
No.
No.
Yeah.
And then the parent still keeps it because and I do this. I had a whole file box for my kids for scheduled by year of the grade that they were in, of all of the important papers and all of the artwork and all of that. And when I moved from Tucson to Tampa, I handed each one of them their bucket, and they both kind of went, "Thanks." And I said, you can do whatever you want with it, but your dad needs to look through it because they live with their dad now. And some of it's important medical documents and some of it's, IEPs and things like that. So, but at that point, it becomes your memory item, not your child's. And so it's better if you don't obligate your child to take that item at some point, whenever it is, because it's no longer their item. They've said thank you and goodbye to it, and you are keeping it for your memorial purposes,
Yeah.
your sentimental
Because
purpose.
it should spark joy, not because of some dysfunctional being unable to let go of your child. Yeah, but because it's like, oh, remember this, and should make me happy. Not like,
So,
oh, I
so
remember when my son lived here. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a different way of reframing that. You're not dysfunctional. You're a great mom who loved all those special moments with their child, right? And so why wouldn't it be hard for you to let your child go? And frankly, if you weren't having at least a little bit of trouble with it, I'd be a little concerned. For me, my kids have been living with me for a week on and a week off, and this has nothing to do with sentimental, but it does sort of come back to it. Since they were 7 and 10, and since I got divorced, basically, they've been living with their dad for a week and then me for a week. And so since they were very little, I've had a week without them, and you get used to what it's like not having a child around. But when it's parents who have their kids full time, it's really hard to let go of the dance costumes and the soccer uniforms and the trophies and the yearbooks and whatever special items it is, the art projects. And there's all sorts of different ways that you can deal with these sentimental items. You can take pictures of them, and you can, create a photo book with them. You can, art projects specifically, you can have them sent off and they scan them and then they send you back a book with all of the items. And so now you just have a small book instead of a pile of papers this big. Same thing with
Oh,
photos.
or like when we would travel together, we would always buy T-shirts. So
Mhm.
I'm having all of those T-shirts from traveling because he can't wear them, but
Right.
and I asked him too, because I put those to the side when we were going through clothes, and I said, would you even want that? And he goes, no, yeah, that might be kind of cool. I said, I was thinking like a throw or something for your game room when when you have your own house. He goes, yeah, I think that might be kind of cool. So
And so
I'm
that
learning to check with him first too.
Yes, exactly. And so, but there may be a stack of t-shirts this big, and maybe he's going to go through those travel t-shirts because the Galapagos didn't mean as much to him as Scotland did. So the Galapagos shirts are going to go out, or maybe he'll just keep one instead of 7. Do you know what I mean? So if it's his quilt, which is a great way of keeping those items, then he gets to pick which shirts go on it, and you get to pick which shirts go on yours because the Galapagos meant more to you than Scotland or whatever,
Yeah.
So that's again checking in with your child. And this is a great way to, and so that was one of the first things we did was clothing, was we started setting aside those quilts. We called them quilt t-shirts. And that really is a sentimental item. And so you started with sentimental in the very first category and you didn't
I'm
even know it.
sentimental about everything.
Yeah, and that's okay too. I mean, why else would you have things in your home unless they mean something to you? It's just that they may not mean the same thing now that they did when you bought them. And they may not mean the same thing in the future as they do now. And so the future is what we're working towards, and the goal of what you have in mind of what your life is going to be like, what your wardrobe is going to be like, what your
That is
travel.
where you come in, and you are so helpful, because that's where I start to drown. I just start to go like this, and it vision to give you an example, I feel like I'm just like going down, and I feel like your hand comes down and like pulls me up and says like, now, and what was the point of what is your intention for your life? What do you want this to look like? And I was able then to kind of crawl back up and like, oh yeah, all of this doesn't matter. I can just let that fall to the bottom, because that's where I want to go. But you really need somebody there if you're like me, especially with the sentimental. I can just get lost in that sea of feelings, and
Yeah.
I need a Shanley lifesaver to like pull me back and get me back on like, okay. Or like, or do you need that thing, or can you just take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Or
And so then there's the idea of honoring something and how are you going to honor it? And so if keeping it safe in a box underneath your bed or in your closet is the best way to honor that thing, then let's do that. But if putting it on a photo box on the wall so that you can see it all the time, or I have another client who has a whole bunch of antique baby doll, like what is it called, christening outfits. And so she bought an old ladder and she put it back in one corner of her room, and she's going to hang all of those things on the rungs. And so it's this cute antique ladder that has the age and the sort of shabby chicness that she likes, and then she's honoring those items by displaying them so that she can look at them and touch them. And so that sort of framed, she had this whole box of them, and they were definitely sentimental. I mean, they had been passed down from this grandmother and this great grandmother, and they'd been used in generations in her family. But it was this box that took up, it's like the size of a suitcase sitting in her room. It was sitting on her bed. She just had it sitting on her bed. She lives alone. And so she just always made space for it on her bed. And so number one, you're sleeping with that. Those are the dreams you're having associated with the energy that's sitting on the bed with you. And we talked about this with the books that were on your
oh
headboard,
yeah.
right? And so you need to figure out what kind of square footage and mental and physical energy you're wanting to allow something in your life to have, right? The control that it has over you. And so transferring those items to a physical place in the room allowed her to still have them sentimentally in view, but it took them off of her bed, which allowed her a restful night's sleep at that point because she could move around her bed and
And
she
she
could
could
sleep
see
on
them
either side.
better
Yeah, and
in
she
the
could sleep
box.
on either side of the bed she wanted. She wasn't obligated to sleep on one side because there was stuff on the other side.
I've been there.
So going through sentimental is a process, but what she did with this huge suitcase box full of items was she went through it because we identified what she was going to do with them. She then had a goal in mind, again with the goal. And so she had a goal in mind and she decided she was going to go through the items, and she looked at each one and she said, well, this one's got some stains and rips and tears, and so I'm going to say thank you and goodbye to that one. And so she was able to whittle it down to just her favorite like 10 dresses instead of 30 or 40. Right. And so that was then the most perfect, pristine ones that she wanted, that had the most sentimental value, that were going to look beautiful hanging on this ladder. And then she gave two-thirds of them away. She donated two-thirds of them to a fabric group that she knew, because it had beautiful tat work and
Oh
lace work
wow.
and stuff.
Yeah.
They were handmade from generations ago, right? And you hate to let that go. But I was telling her that there's groups out there, like, so wedding dresses is a huge thing in the sentimental category. And there's a whole way that you can dispose or donate. Um,
Repurpose it.
to repurpose it. And so what happens is there's a couple of groups that are angel groups out there. And what they do is they make gowns for stillborn babies who who haven't made it through. And so they'll cut up the wedding dresses and make them into little burial gowns, basically. And so that's a great way to honor a happy time in your life. Or maybe you're keeping something that's not so happy, but you don't want to get rid of it. But it's taking, I mean, archived gowns take up, a crap ton of space in your closet. those boxes are not small, or even if it's just hanging like mine, just hanging in the closet, because I'm going to cut the bottom off and I'm going to make it into a summer dress. Ladies, I've been married almost 9 years. I have not done that yet. I really need to let it go. And frankly, I even tried my wedding dress on to go to a ball basically in Tucson before we left. I couldn't fit into it anymore. And so that became an in 10 pounds situation. Do you know how it makes me feel to have that dress sitting there knowing it doesn't fit me and I'm supposed to be trying to cut it down and all blah, blah, blah. I need to just let it go. So what I'll do is we'll put a list of the resources available for ways you can donate your wedding dresses.
Well, that
Um,
helps so much because especially with the sentimental stuff, because it means something to you, but then it's, if you know that it can be a beautiful burial gown for a stillborn baby, which sounds terrible, but I mean, at least that gives like, oh, like a piece, something that I loved can can give
Help
love to
someone else.
somebody else. So it's
Yes.
like it extends that love, because most of the things that you hold close, you have sentimental feelings about.
Yeah.
If you can pass that love, if you can pay it forward or
Yeah.
let it be repurposed into something to bring love and joy to somebody else, then it's almost not like letting it go. It's like still there, and it really
Exactly.
makes you focus on like, well, so what? Why is this thing? And maybe that's why it's the hardest category, because you have to go all in your feelings there.
Yeah.
Um, but to separate like the thing from
The
the memory.
memories, from the memories. And you said this beautifully so many times. I don't have to have this thing to think about my aunt or my mother or
My
my
mother. Mhm.
mother-in-law or my grandmother or my whoever. I still can think about it. And I said, and there were a couple of things you kept because it was the last thing that you had from that person. Um, and that is perfectly okay, but even then it may be important to you in a way that is irreplaceable if you didn't have it anymore, and that's fine too.
I think when both of my parents are dead, and when they died, when you were talking, it just dawned on me that like I felt like I wanted to keep all of their things, because I guess I was trying to replace them, or like
Yeah,
keep them there.
yeah,
And but then you realize like, I this really has a good memory. All this other stuff is just their stuff, and I
yeah,
was trying to keep it, but I don't need their stuff.
yeah.
Just
To
I just
remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and so that's
that's
when you start sorting through things and you go from, 5, let's just call it 1 through 5 on level of sentimentality of the crock pot that belonged to your mom, but you have a crock pot of your own and you feel you're kind of like meh about it. So it's a 1 out of 5 on sentimentality, but you have it. So would you be okay maybe letting it go? You have your own crock pot. You remember your mom using that crock pot, but do you need the crock pot to remember your mom using a crock pot? No. So let somebody else have the crock pot and just have the memory of, this item that made you so, so, so happy. The jewelry or the brooch or the dress or the whatever that, you remember your mom wearing and it sparks so much joy. And maybe you turn it into a pillow and put it on your couch or on your bed or in your guest bedroom or on the chair that your clients sit in when they come to your office or whatever. So that's a way of that's part of the honoring it process. Is it doesn't have to stay in the form factor that it's in, like those t-shirts that you're turning into a quilt. They don't have to be t-shirts anymore. You're turning them into something that's useful for you, and that's a great way to repurpose sentimental items.
Yeah.
So thinking creatively about stuff like that is also what I help do while you're going through that process. So another thing that this other client did was she decided that she was going to display one of the gowns in sort of a memory box. And so I said, well, what you could do is you could take some of those handkerchiefs and you could create the background that the dress is then going to sit on top of. And so that was yet another way to keep some of those beautiful tatted items and honor those as well, but then have them not be out anymore, right? They were behind a closed glass, shadow case. And so it's just a different way of thinking about how to repurpose that.
Well, that's one of the benefits of having you, is because I don't know, you're just stuck in a like, this is how I look at this, and to have have your outside eyes going, well, what about this? You could do this with, or what do you think about doing that? I'm like, oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, because
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
just
because
wasn't on my
I'm
radar.
Yeah, and because I'm trained in this, it's
There you
literally
go.
what I do. It's my job, right? And so
How
I
many
have,
times did I say, Shanley, you're a genius?
right.
And
So
she
like when
says,
I
I
want to
just
learn it,
trained.
when I want to learn about crystals and Reiki, I go to you because that's your job. I don't know. So let's just go quickly, real quick through because we're already at 25 minutes. I want to go through the thing with sentimental is it's such a large category. So you're going to break it down into smaller categories. So common categories are going to include photos or like your kids' artwork or clothing from loved ones or from milestones like your graduation gown or cap.
Yeah, that little
Um,
tassel.
yeah, which mine is hanging right there. It's important to me. I got my degree at 43. I think I should celebrate that, but I let go the gown, but I still have the tassel on the cap, and that's important to me. It's an art piece on my wall, right?
Yeah.
And so letters or correspondence or gifts. And I want to just keep reminding people that the gift is in the giving. Okay. And just because you received a gift from someone does not mean you need to keep it. Okay. The idea of that person giving you that item made them happy. They thought of it. They thought of you. They wanted to give it to you. They've now given it to you. Done. Click, done, done. Right. It now belongs to me. It is something for me to be able to do whatever I want with. Okay. So let's think about that oak furniture again. And I just love going back to this because so many people keep furniture for their kids. If your son is going to keep that furniture but really hate it every time he comes in the room, you don't want him to feel like that, right?
Right.
You don't. And so for him to have to lug this thing around and find space for it every place he lives because his mom thinks he should have whatever, but it doesn't have to even be furniture. It could be a chest full of war medals from grandfather or whoever, whatever. Um, don't obligate people to contain things, to keep things. Like, would your mom want you to have all those boxes or your dad to have all those boxes of their things and know that you feel cluttered and you don't want to be in your own home? This is common for most people. I spend time over there, not here, because that makes me feel anxious. Okay, well, let's deal with that. And is your mom or your dad or your auntie or your grandma or whoever, do you think they want you to feel anxious because you're now the keeper of all of their things?
Keeper of stuff.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm
no,
Karen Gag, keeper of stuff. Yeah.
exactly. And it's not even sentimental stuff. It's just stuff that you
Stuff.
haven't dealt with yet. It's literally just stuff. Like it would not have been sentimental to your mom either, but she probably just never did this Swedish death cleaning, which is what you're doing now, to release things that only have sentimental meaning to you. And so that's part of Swedish death cleaning, which is a combination of a couple of other ways of dealing with your stuff. Is you can create boxes. And so in this box, it's going to be sentimental, look through. This one's sentimental, but throw away. Like it's personal, private things like your diaries and your journals and maybe love letters
Oh,
from that person that nobody else knew about or whatever. Just even love letters from your spouse that you don't really want somebody else to read. And so you label the box on all sides, you know, don't keep, throw away, burn, whatever. But then this one is labeled important documents, go through. This one's labeled don't go through. And you have to hope that your children or whoever, executors, honor those wishes. But this is a way to also itemize your sentimental things for later use by other people so that your kids know what's important to you after you're gone, because they don't want to have to think about, was this important, what about that,
yeah.
they're not in a frame of mind to be able to make those decisions, and so all of a sudden everything gets kept and
Yeah.
everything wasn't important.
Yeah. That's really good.
So think about paying it forward and helping those who are going to be responsible after you're gone. And that's the idea of Swedish death cleaning. So look it up, do some research on that. But this is the idea of a goal in mind where we work through the KonMari process and go to sentimental last. And then we start going through into storage. And so this was actually something we did at the end of the session of clothing, is I taught you how to fold clothing, and then you put everything back in your drawers and hung everything in your closet. And so initially you had just put things out, and this is temporary storage. So When you're going through a category, this is temporary, okay? It's gonna get worse before it gets better, okay? It absolutely will. It can't get better before it gets worse. So you have to just shove some things into drawers, and then we'll come back to that. We'll pull it all back out again, which is what we did with you. You had a big pile on your bed again. You sorted socks and underwear and shorts and pants and t-shirts, and then we started folding by category, and there's lots of great videos out there on how to fold the KonMari.
By the way, so since we have done that, I love just opening my drawers and finding my little shirts, and it's like, I love it, love it, love it.
And you can see everything you have. And so the nice thing about folding is that you can customize it to your space. This is something you need to keep in mind when you're watching those videos. Is some people have drawers in your dresser, you have a few drawers this tall, and then you have other drawers this tall. So in this drawer, you're going to fold your things in a third, and in this drawer, you're going to fold your things in half, because they fit the space better. So you don't have to do it exactly like the videos show. I want you to customize it to make your space work for you. That's the most important part, is make your space work for you.
It's so weird because I just mindlessly, I guess I never really thought about it. You just fold clothes the way your mom shows you how. It's like, get over there and fold that basket of clothes. Like, okay, you know, and I've done that all my life. Just
yeah, or maybe your mom never showed you how to fold clothes. I absolutely have clients who never learned how to fold clothes. And they may have a laundry person who does it for them for that reason, because they're like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that. And so I have clients who I've taught them, and then I've taught their laundry people how to fold the KonMari way, because they want to keep it up. But there are people who just have never been taught.
No, I'll never fold. I'm going to teach my son.
Good, good. And so again, look at all the resources available to you. There's tons of videos out there. There's ones on how to fold hoodies and how to fold dresses and how to fold skirts and how to fold socks and how to fold underwear. I will be real with you people. I don't fold my underwear. That's the one category I don't fold, because I only have enough pairs to last me for about a week. And so I go through them and I don't need to fold them. And it's the one section that's just a little bundle right there. Everything else is folded the KonMari way. Everything else but that. But Karen folded her underwear the KonMari.
I folded my underwear. So it's basically, you just make a rectangle out of anything. Just make a rectangle or a square so it can just stand up in the drawer.
That's right. So the goal is to make a rectangle. That's it. It's not hard.
Just amazing.
So the idea is that storage is when you start putting things away, and you're dealing with the temporariness of what's been happening. This is the getting better stage, okay? And so now Karen's closet and her dresser drawers are all ready to go. She even has, how many empty dresser drawers do you have now?
I have two huge ones. Two
empty.
They're like this deep, and I can't even show you how wide they are, about this wide. Yeah.
And the drawers that you're using the space of, they're less than half full.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the goal here with storage is to fill something 80% of the way, so that way you can leave space for other items to come in. And remember, again, you want to do sort of the one in, one out situation. The reason that clothes get wrinkles is not because you're folding them, it's because they're smashed together. They don't have room to breathe. And so you want them to have room to breathe. And if they do, then you're going to have enough space to put in another shirt or another whatever. But you might, want to think about letting one go if one comes in.
I really like the mindfulness of it too, because I've lived so much of my life trying not to be present and trying not to be in my mind and trying not, you know, but that putting it on the bed, like you said, is sort of like smoothing it out. And I'm trying to go like, I like your shirt. You know,
and it's showing love for the item. That's how you show love for the item. So they call it iron hands with the KonMari way. And so you spread love through your hands to the item, and that is how you honor the item and say thank you to the item for serving you all day long. The shirt is serving me right now. These earrings are serving me. Your shirt, your necklace, all those things. And so the thing about socks in particular was most people take them and they sort of fold them over like that, and that stretches out the elastic. And it also, so the thing with Marie is that she loves to honor things, and so she doesn't want to create more stress on an item, okay? And that's the stretching out of the elastic and holding it like that. So instead, you just put your socks together and then you fold them down like that, you know, so that they're
it's
like
so
that.
Japanese, I guess. But being a Reiki master, of course, Reiki comes from Japan, but it's Well, there,
You
it's
know,
like
yeah,
energy through your hands, like
that's right.
and yeah, it's like every Reiki master should do this. I mean,
That's
absolutely.
right. That's right. Every Reiki
It's
master,
like
go
an
ahead and give me a
extension.
call.
It's a really sort of a spiritual, holistically healthy way of being. So
To honor your things and so that they will then honor you back by giving you love and joy in your space. And that way, eventually, what's going to happen, you kept saying, well, I don't have room for this, I don't have room for that. I noticed you said something the other day about you're missing your you haven't found your vaccination records. And I'm like, well, we're going to find that before we're done, I promise. We'll know where it is, and
oh
you'll
yeah,
have
you saw that on Facebook. That's right. Yeah.
yeah. And you'll have a place for it and you'll know where to go to find it because
Because
that's
it's important. It shows that I've had both of my hepatitis, whichever one you need for South America, and my yellow fever. Yeah, I don't want to do those again.
exactly. And so we're going to find it and you're going to know where to find it in the future because it will have a home and you'll always keep it in its home unless you're actively using it.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal for organization right there. Find a place for it and keep it in its place
Where does
unless
it
you're
live?
using it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shanley's just like, where does that live? I'm like, it doesn't live anywhere. She said,
And so then that's part of what we do is establish processes for things. And so then the next question is, where would you look for it? And then that's what triggers you to put it in a place to find a home for it. Well, I would look for that in my office because blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. Go put it in your office right now. We aren't on paperwork yet, but we're going to find it again when we get to paperwork. And then we're going to find a home for it when we're done at the end of paperwork.
yeah. Well, this has just been super. I know I'm not finished with the process yet, but I hope that this series has helped. Maybe you're not as in bad a shape as I was. So maybe you can kind of jump in there and learn from this. But if you are anywhere near where I was, I'm starting to feel like there are more people in my shoes with just too much stuff and just overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. And so I would encourage you to hire Shanley. She is worth every penny. Just yeah, and even like selling some stuff, I probably have gotten, if I wanted to take the time to sell it, I probably could sell enough to pay for. Haven't you
Yeah.
had clients that sell it or find enough stuff?
Absolutely. There's always three things that happen. Oh, that's where that is. I've been looking for that. And look, money. And I had one client find over $600 in her garage, just her garage. We only did her garage. She found over $600 in checks and cash that had just been sitting in cards and other, things in her garage. And that was more than enough to pay for my services to get her garage cleaned.
There you go.
Every client finds money, every single one.
I forgot to tell you, I found $20 worth of Sonic gift cards.
Woo! The best one yet is the client who found a Blockbuster gift card. It's like, this has been here for a long time.
Yeah. Oh,
So, anywho, so it's 12:38. So we or whatever time 38. So
okay.
it's been a wonderful privilege to be able to go through this process with you and explain these things. And if you have questions, leave them in the discussion. We'll go back to them and answer your stuff. Go to my
Yeah.
YouTube channel and like it.
Yes, go subscribe to her YouTube channel because she'll be sharing stuff in the future, and that way I plan to follow because I know there'll be. I think this is like anything; it's a habit, to get into. So I'll be following to see what new trips. No, I'm on my own trip. Tips
and tricks.
and tricks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There might be trips in the future when I get that vaccination
Yeah,
card.
maybe
Absolutely.
Stanley organizes Greece. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to travel.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Love you
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.